I wanted to talk today about living to train another day. And what I mean by that is talking about building intuition in your training. And I'll talk another time about intuition in nutrition. But when we're talking about intuition in our training, we're thinking about trying to actually connect to what's going on internally for us. And I don't mean that necessarily emotionally, although that can have an impact, but I'm talking about physiologically, where are we? And you can base this, cognitively, you can base this on external factors, like all of the basic recovery pieces. How much sleep have we had? What has our nutrition been like? How stressed are we in our external lives? And that can be based on family situation, it can be based on work, just pure busyness, all of the classic stresses like buying a house, getting married, people dying, getting a new job, getting sacked from your current job, leaving a job, starting a new career, having kids. All of these things are the classic stresses and they absolutely go into the mixing pot. But we also need to connect to how we feel and then learning to slowly be able to use that feeling that we have from training in our training to know how hard to push. The more competitive you are, the harder or more driven you are in your training, the more important this is, because you're more likely to burn out. So someone who has a set goal, let's say a triathlon or a running race, or lifting a certain weight by a certain date, or getting a PB or something like that, there's a bit of pressure there. And that pressure can mean that sometimes you force yourself into training when really you should be backing off, or force yourself to stick to the plan. Now, we all need a plan, but as Mike Tyson says, no one's plan, what was his phrase? Everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face. Well, life is going to punch you in the face in regards to this by giving you stressors. Your training is another stressor, and the ability to adapt to that is based upon how many other stressors there are in your life. So the ability to actually sit back and think about, how do I feel today? How am I going to go about training? And it might be that before you even start, you've decided you're going to go at 70% of the intensity that you intended to go at. So if you have a weight training session and you're looking to, it's an intensity day and you're looking to pull a heavy set of 5 on your deadlift, you start warming up with the intention to working to 70% of what you might normally aim for. Now, when you get into that session, you might actually feel pretty good, and then maybe you can push it a bit, or maybe you can pull it back. But it's about having that flexibility and being able to think for yourself in the gym. Clients I coach, I encourage this. I encourage them to leave a training session if they're not feeling good. If they're going in and there's knee pain that's come from nowhere, or they're feeling exhausted and weights just aren't moving very well. You can learn a lot about yourself, and you can, through doing that, by paying attention to how you feel, by paying attention to how quickly that 80% deadlift comes off the floor when you're building to a 90% deadlift, by paying attention to how high your heart rate is or what it feels like when you're running at your normal 10k pace, something that's comfortable for you normally, and suddenly it's feeling like you can't get your breathing right, your pacing's off. Listening to those things, that's your central nervous system telling you, it's your body telling you that something's not right. Now, it might be that you know exactly what that is. You slept for 4 hours last night because the kids woke you up. You've got a massive business meeting that you can't get out of your head tomorrow. It could be a million different things. But it might be something you can't quite put your finger on. Things that maybe felt quite good and just it's not quite right today. For whatever reason it is, listening to your body and knowing when to push and when to back off is really, really important. Now, what we don't do is just push all the time when we're feeling good, because what can happen is actually the adrenaline Adrenaline and cortisol you get from that can make you feel really good in the moment, so you think you feel good, but actually after each session you're absolutely broken, and you just end up in a cycle of a cortisol drip essentially. And I've been there, I'm prone to it myself because I love training, but it's really important that we step out of that cortisol drip. So I guess what I'm trying to say here is that it's really, 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 really important that we start to focus on building intuition in our training. And what that's going to do is it's going to allow you to know when you need to back off, know when your training needs adjusting, either on the long-term scale of like a couple of weeks, or just today on that one training session you just got to back off for the day. Take the hit that feels like it is, and know that actually long-term it allows you to make more progress because you're good to go tomorrow or the day after for your next session, rather than pushing through and then afterwards you're like, actually what felt like a small twinge is actually now a proper injury, or the next day you get the flu or a stomach bug because your immune system's depressed or suppressed, because you've pushed too hard when you shouldn't really have been pushing. Our body has lots of subtle giveaways for this if you start to listen to it. This is going to mean you need to cultivate a connection with how you feel. It means we need to stop covering it with caffeine, alcohol and drugs and dopamine hits from constantly being on our screens. It means we need to disconnect from that constant cortisol and adrenaline drip that modern life can easily give us. It's hard, really hard, but it will pay massive dividends in your training and in your long-term health and longevity.